You know, when I first came across the book Disappearance of the Universe, which is a book basically that illuminates the teachings of A Course in Miracles, which explains A Course in Miracles in very practical terms, very down-to-earth terms. I was in a bookstore I was actually in Lewiston, Maine, which happens to be right near, I think, where the author, Gary Renard, was living at the time, which I just thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, when I came across the book, I was really searching. I was really searching for something more. Like I felt like there were some missing pieces to my understanding of, you know, what's going on metaphysically. Like, why are we here? What is this life about? Why is it so difficult? and what, you know, how can I heal myself? You know, prior to coming across that book, I was very much into the Conversations with God books, and I had gotten into Eckhart Tolle as well, The Power of Now, which was so profound. I remember I was listening to the book on tape a lot when I was driving around the country doing my hypnotherapy seminars back then, and yeah, just sinking inward, just going, wow, like it's really, you know, it's really possible to get in touch with this deep state of mind of, you know, non-judgment, of profound awareness. And yeah, there was all these questions in my mind though about, well, okay, but if God created this universe, you know, why is it so catastrophic and conflict prone? You know, because that's what the book's Conversations with God teach, is that they teach that God created this world as, you know, like a way of, like, God wanted to experience himself, you know, which now I think is you know, quite comical, but that's what a lot of religions teach. A lot of, you know, I mean, like Christianity and a lot of the more kind of fundamentalist type religions, you know, they don't really teach that God created the world to experience himself. That's more of a, like, a higher level kind of you know, Eastern teaching that says that the one manifested itself into duality. And there was, you know, even though that kind of resonated for me at the time, there was still this kind of, you know, something doesn't quite fit there. Like for example, human beings, we seem to be so, you know, stupid, for lack of a better word. You know, we're like always, you know, so self-defeating, and male and female, they, you know, it's like these two opposites that seem to just see the world in very different ways. You know, men are often much more intellectual and rational, and, you know, and women are always seem to be in general more emotional and more intuitive, and there just seems like it's like a setup, like the world was made to fail, because when we try to come together as human beings and join, more often than not, it seems to result in communication breakdowns and problems, and yeah, there's lots of love in the world as well, but why is it so problematic? Why would God create a universe that is so, conflict prone? And of course, when you look at the teachings of, the Bible, and Christianity, saying that, well, God, put the tree of knowledge, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden, which was like the paradise, and told Adam not to eat it, and then, and then Eve comes along, and then she tempts Adam, and they eat it, and then God gets angry at them and kicks them out of the garden. But, that whole story, I mean, it's like, why, like, if God is God, and God knows everything, then God would have known that putting the tree there would have resulted, that's like putting a bag of candy in a room with your children and saying, whatever you do, you can do anything in this room you want, but don't eat that candy. And of course, any good parent knows that that's the most likely way to get the child to eat the candy. So when you look at it that way, it starts to make God seem to be this, like pretty cruel parent. Like he intentionally he put something there to tempt them, and knowing that they would do it, he'd have to know if he was God, because he knows everything. And then he gets angry. That'd be like the parent getting angry then for the child eating the candy. When the parent knew that the child was going to eat the candy, and then kicking them out of the house and telling them that they can never come back. So, that, of course, that whole story never really resonated with me, and I had so much anger, at Christians, and how could they believe in such a God? And then, when I got into the more kind of New Age teachings, I guess you could say, or the more, I think of them now as just kind of higher level metaphors, like philosophies that perceive God in a more loving way, that perceive God as, approaching perfection, whereas in Christianity, God is like this kind of projection of a human being. It's like we've made God out to be like us, where he seems to have good days and bad days, and he has different moods, and sometimes he's loving and he extends mercy and love, and other times he starts a war, like in the Old Testament. He zaps tribes, or he tells people to go to war, and he has favorites, and all these, and he's jealous. And so yeah, when I got into conversations with God, it was this huge, it was like this release of, like, finally a philosophy that makes a lot more sense than what I was taught growing up. I never really was raised Christian, but you can't really avoid hearing and kind of hearing about it and what the teachings are. So it really it just resonated so deeply, and I know that many of you have had that same experience. Just kind of where it's like we're led by the Holy Spirit up this ladder from the older teachings, and it's really just it's all our own mind. It's our own mind beginning to heal itself by accepting God's love, more and more, and then our perception of God begins to get cleansed. Like in Corinthians in the Bible, it says, you've been seeing through a glass darkly, and that's the state of, that's the human condition that needs to be healed. So when Disappearance of the Universe came into my life and Course in Miracles, I just couldn't understand. I still had this problem of, why would God create a universe that seems so fallible? Why would he create human beings that are so fallible, that we're just constantly tripping over our own feet. And then in Disappearance of the Universe, I remember that first day I'm reading it, and it says that God did not create this universe, and that God has nothing to do with it. That this universe was a projection of our own imagination, not the human being's imagination, but the cosmic mind that we are, that was created by God as completely perfect. And then there was seemingly this moment of, I wonder what it would be like if I were separate from God. And then time and space were projected out as like the answer to that hypothetical question. And it was all set up as a defense to make the experience of separation real, and to maintain it through fear and guilt. And so the whole universe was actually a projection, which explains why it fails and why it keeps us in this loop of frustration and stress and guilt and fear. And it's a pretty radical teaching, and it provides complete hope. Complete hope, because if it's all my own mind, if I did this to myself, as the Course teaches, it says the secret of salvation is that you have done this to yourself. You're doing this to yourself, and it is this you can undo through forgiveness. And so when after I read Disappearance of the Universe and then started studying the Course, I just felt this profound, I was so inspired and so motivated to start practicing forgiveness in every single situation that I could. That with every relationship, and start to, really forgiveness is like, it's just really seeing through the veil. It's being willing to be reminded that this is all a dream. And no one else is dreaming the dream. It's my dream. I'm the dreamer of the dream that I'm perceiving. And there's only one dream. And I can heal my perception of the dream by being willing to be healed through opening up to this intuitive spiritual presence that we call the Holy Spirit, and allowing my perception to be transformed. So I wrote this song, I think about a year, maybe a little bit more, about a year and a half ago. No, actually I started writing it about 2.5 years ago, and then I got kind of stuck on it. I couldn't keep going for some reason, and then I finished the song maybe a year ago. And I feel like it's one of the most, I don't know, I feel like it's one of those songs I was given by the Spirit that really illuminates this idea that everything I see is me, that this whole world, this whole cosmos is me. It's a dream that reflects my own mind. It's all my own mind. And therefore I can never, ever blame anybody else or anything else, and especially not God, because God had nothing to do with this dream that I invented, which was invented and projected outward as an attack on God, actually, as a way of blocking my mind from His love so that I could experience what I thought I wanted, which is separation from God, little realizing that separation from God actually sucks. And now it's time, now I'm, finally at this point, after probably seemingly many, lifetimes, where I'm tired of it. I'm tired of playing the game of being a human being and being this separated entity, and I'm ready to really experience, to wake up to reality and to let myself be loved, to let myself to bask in God's love. Just like the prodigal son story, where the son, leaves his father's house to try to find happiness outside of his father's, kingdom, and then finally gets to the point where he goes, gosh, like this sucks. I'd be better off back there as one of my father's, hired servants than doing what I'm doing out here, feeding the pigs and eating the whatever. And so he finally starts to make his way back, and on the way back, his father sees him coming and rushes to greet him with all his love, and he's not angry at all. That was Jesus' story. That was a parable that Jesus told to actually correct the Adam and Eve story. Jesus was actually correcting the Old Testament in that story by giving people a different image, a different perception of God. No, God didn't kick us out. We're the ones who left. We're the prodigal son that left the Father's house. And all we need to do is realize we made a huge, huge mistake, a cosmic mistake. And that all we have to do is go back, is start to head back. And we don't really know the way, but we have the Holy Spirit to guide us, and Jesus who made it back to guide us. And that even before we get there, the Father will rush to us. This love, we just, I feel like I'm just starting to really experience that. Every day I feel more and more of this presence of profound, it's like that agape love that just tells me I'm innocent. I never did anything wrong. It was just a dream. And God is not angry at all. It even says in the Course that God doesn't forgive, for he has never condemned. He never even, like the cosmic universe was just a blip. It was like it didn't even happen. It really didn't even happen, actually. Which is, so that's such a, what can you say to that? And so it's really all about my own mind, and I'm hallucinating. I'm completely insane, and the Holy Spirit, however, is in my mind as my healer, as my teacher, as my guide, as my comforter. And all I have to do is be willing. So, this song is called It's Only Me. I think I'll take a quick sip of water first. Everyone that I see, and everything that I perceive is me. And now I'm free. And anytime I believe that somebody else is the cause of my grief, I need to stop and see I am deceived, 'cause it's only me. I am the dreamer of this dream. I've just got to learn to see it's only me. And when I'm afraid, it's only the thoughts that I have made. There's no one outside to blame, it's only me, and I am free. The projections of my false memory. There's no need to ever take any of it seriously. All that's ever seemed to be of time was just a foolish fictional storyline. But I'm learning that it never really happened, except in my mind. 'Cause it's only me. I am the dreamer of this dream. I've just got to learn to see it's only take responsibility. Finally, 'cause it's only me. I am the dreamer of this dream. I've just got to learn to see it's only me. And when I'm afraid, it's only thoughts that I have made. There's no one outside to blame. It's only me. And I am yes, I'm free in the innocence I see. 'Cause everyone that I see and everything I perceive is me. And I am